Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Dandavat Pranam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna. నేను ఇక్కడ అబిడ్స్ అబిడ్సన్ టెంపుల్ పోతుంది ప్రభు. అబిడ్స్ టెంపుల్ చాలా మిస్ అవుతుంది యాక్చువల్గా. డాలస్ టెక్సాస్ టెంపుల్ ఈరోజు తులసి శాలిగ్రామ వివాహం అండ్ కార్తీక్ లాస్ట్ డే దామోదరాష్టకం మధ్యలో నేను చూపిస్తానండి. ఓకే ప్రభు. టెంపుల్లో ఉన్నా.
హరే కృష్ణ.
నేను రీడింగ్ మీకు హోస్ట్ ఇస్తా, ఓకేనా ప్రభు? చేస్తారా
రీడింగ్? ఓకే ప్రభుజీ. మళ్ళా లేట్ అయితే అంటే నేను 8:30 8:40 వరకు అయితే ఓకే.
8:40 వరకు ఉన్నాయి. తొందరగా ఎండి చేయండి కావాలంటే. తర్వాత చూద్దాం. మీరు ఎంతవరకు అంటే మీకు ఇచ్చిన హోస్ట్ ట్యాక్స్ మీరు దీపం అదకి ఇవ్వచ్చు. ఓకేనా? రీడింగ్ టైం వరకు మధ్యలో ఇప్పుడు నేను దర్శనం చూపిస్తాను. ఓకే. హరే కృష్ణ. హరే కృష్ణ. హరే కృష్ణ. సపన్ ప్రభు ధన్యవాద ప్రణామ్.
హరే కృష్ణ ప్రభు.
హరి బోల్. Thank you for chanting. Yeah, I'll show the darshan of from Bharat people. Today is the last day of Kartik in here. So Deeparadhana, Damodarastam they will do sometime. So I will open the video and show. Thank you very much.
Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Hare
cutting line.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Ram Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Krishna Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Can
Yeah,
you
I'm
start?
starting. Yeah. Yes, Prabhuji, will start. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We're starting 1.13.48. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Therefore, O King, you should look at the Supreme Lord only, who is one without a second and who manifests himself by different energies and is both within and without. Purport. The Supreme Lord, personality of Godhead is one without a second, but he manifests himself by different energies because he is by nature blissful. The living beings are also manifestations of his marginal energy, qualitatively one with the Lord, and there are innumerable living beings, both within and without the external and internal energies of the Lord. Since the spiritual world is a manifestation of the Lord's internal energy, the living beings within that internal potency are qualitatively one with the Lord without contamination from the external potency. Although qualitatively one with the Lord, the living being, due to contamination of the material world, is pervertedly manifested, and therefore he experiences so-called happiness and distress in the material world. Such experiences are all ephemeral and do not affect the spirit soul. The perception of such ephemeral happiness and distress is due only to the forgetfulness of the qualities which are equal to the Lord's. There is, however, a regular current from the Lord himself, from within and without, by which to rectify the fallen condition of the living being. From within, he corrects the desiring living beings as localized Paramatma, and from without, he corrects by his manifestations. The spiritual master and the revealed scriptures. Okay. One should look unto the Lord. One should not be disturbed by the so-called manifestations of happiness or distress, but he should try to cooperate with the Lord in his outward activities for correcting the fallen souls. By his order only, one should become a spiritual master and cooperate with the Lord. One should not become a spiritual master for one's personal benefit, for some material gain, or as an avenue of business or occupation for earning livelihood. Bona fide spiritual masters who look unto the Supreme Lord to cooperate with him are actually qualitatively one with the Lord, and the forgetful ones are perverted reflections only. Yudhishthir Maharaj is advised by Narada, therefore, not to be disturbed by the affairs of so-called happiness and distress, but to look only unto the Lord to execute the mission for which the Lord has descended. That was his prime duty. Hare Krishna. Samyukta Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. That Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, in the guise of all devouring time, Kala Rupa, has now descended to the earth to eliminate the envious from the world. Purport. There are two classes of human beings, namely the envious and the obedient. Since the Supreme Lord is one and the Father of all living beings, the envious living beings are also his sons, but they are known as the Asuras. But the living beings who are obedient to the Supreme Father are called Devatas or demigods, because they are not contaminated by the material conception of life. Not only are the Asuras envious of the Lord, in even denying the existence of the Lord, but they are also envious of all other living beings. The predominance of Asuras in the world is occasionally rectified by the Lord when he eliminates them from the world and establishes a rule of Devatas like the Pandavas. His designation as Kala is discussed is significant. He is not at all dangerous, but he is the transcendental form of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. For the devotees, his factual form is disclosed, and for the non-devotees, he appears like Kala Rupa, which is casual form. This casual form of the Lord is not at all pleasing to the Asuras, and therefore they think of the Lord as formless in order to feel secure that they will not be vanquished by the Lord. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Sandhya Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. The Lord has already performed his duties to help the demigods, and he is awaiting the rest. You Pandavas may wait as long as the Lord is here on earth. Purport. The Lord descends from his abode, Krishna Loka, the topmost planet in spiritual sky, in order to help the demigod administrators of this material world when they are greatly vexed by the Asuras, who are envious not only of the Lord but also of his devotees. As referred to above, the conditioned living beings contact material association by their own choice, dictated by a strong desire to lord it over the resources of the material world and become initiation lords of all they survey. Everyone is trying to become an incarnation.
Imitation.
Everyone is trying to become an imitation god. There is keen competition among such imitation gods, and such competitors are generally known as asuras. When there are too many asuras in the world, then it becomes a hell for those who are devotees of the Lord. Due to growth of the asuras, the mass of people are generally devoted to the Lord by nature, and the pure devotees of the Lord, including the demigods in higher planets, pray to Lord for relief, and the Lord either descends personally from him above or deputes some of his devotees to remodel the fallen condition of human society or even animal society. Such such disruptions take place not only in human society but also among animals, birds, or other living beings, including the demigods in the higher planets. Lord Sri Krishna descended personally to vanquish asuras like Kamsa, Jarasandha, and Shishupala, and during the reign of Maharaja Yudhishthira, amongst all these asuras were killed by the Lord. Now he was awaiting the annihilation of his own dynasty called the Yadu Vamsha, who appeared by his will in this world. He wanted to take them away before his own departure to his eternal abode. Narada, like Vidura, did not disclose the imminent annihilation of the Yadu dynasty, but indirectly gave a hint to the king and his brothers to wait till the incident happened and the Lord departed. Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you.
Swapna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Translation. O King, your uncle Dhritarashtra, his brother Vidura, and his wife Gandhari have gone to the southern side of the Himalaya mountains, where there are shelters of great sages. Purport. To pacify the mourning Maharaj Yudhishthira, Narada first of all spoke from the philosophical point of view, and then he began to describe the future movements of his uncle, which he could see by his foreseeing powers, and thus then began to describe as follows. Shall I continue, Mataji?
Yeah, I'm just checking, Mataji. Yeah, you can continue this.
Yeah, the place is called Saptasrota, divided by 7, because there the waters of the sacred Ganges were divided into 7 branches. This was done for the satisfaction of 7 great rishis. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Lalit Mohan Prabhu, can you read?
Yes, just a minute, Savita, can I call you back? I think somebody came. Okay, so we understand where we are now. So the discussion is now between whom and whom?
Narada and
Yudhishthira Maharaj.
Yudhishthira Maharaj.
Yeah, Yudhishthira Maharaj was lamenting about the loss of their parents, who Dhritarashtra and Gandhari and Vidura. All the 3 of them left at once. And this discussion between Yudhishthira and Narada is again the background of what?
Between Shukdev Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj. That is a background of Suta Goswami and Saunaka Rishi.
So just why I am saying this, now we have gone to the 4th layer of it again. Okay. First layer is Suta Goswami, Saunaka Rishi. They are speaking about what? Whom? Sukadev Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj. Now Parikshit Maharaj asked some questions, of which the answer is given by Sukadev Goswami in a form of how Dhritarashtra quit his home.
Yeah.
And while quitting his home, what happens is, in the past time, who has come? Vidura has come from all his Tirtha Yatras, and he, has done some lectures to his brother Dhritarashtra, and both of them left. And now the Yudhishthira was crying, lamenting, why they have gone, what fault I have done. Then Narada Muni and Yudhishthira Maharaj, there is a conversation, Vartalap, and this is where we are. Okay, the fourth layer we are in.
Yes.
Translation. On the banks of Saptashrota, Dhritarashtra is now engaged in beginning Ashtanga Yoga by bathing 3 times daily, in the morning, noon, and in the evening, by performing the Agnihotra sacrifice with fire, and by drinking only water. This helps one control the mind and senses and frees one completely from thoughts of familial affection. Purport by His Divine A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The yoga system is a mechanical way to control the senses and the mind and divert them from the matter of spirit. The preliminary process are the sitting posture, meditation, spiritual thoughts, manipulation of air passing within the body, and gradual situation in trance facing the absolute person, Paramatma. Such mechanical ways of rising to the spiritual platform prescribe some regulative principles of taking bath daily 3 times, fasting as far as possible, sitting and concentrating the mind on spiritual matters, and thus gradually becoming free from Vishaya or material objectives. Material existence means to be absorbed in the material objective, which is simply illusory. House, country, family, society, children, property, and business are some of the material coverings of the spirit. Atma and the yoga system helps one to become free from all these illusory thoughts and gradually turn towards the absolute person, Paramatma. By material association and education, we learn simply to concentrate on the flimsy things, but yoga is the process of forgetting them altogether. Modern so-called yogis and yoga systems manifest some magical feats, and ignorant persons are attracted by such false things, or they accept the yoga system as a cheap healing process for a disease of the gross body. But factually, the yoga system is the process of learning to forget what we have acquired throughout the struggle for existence. Dhritarashtra was all along engaged in improving family affairs by raising the standard of living of his sons or by usurping the property of the Pandavas for the sake of his own sons. These are the common affairs for a man grossly materialistic and without knowledge of the spiritual force. He does not see how this can drag one from heaven to hell. By the grace of his younger brother Vidura, Dhritarashtra was enlightened and could see his grossly illusory engagements. And by such enlightenment, he was able to leave home for the spiritual realization. Sri Narada Deva was just foretelling the way of his spiritual progress in a place which was sanctified by the flow of the celestial Ganges. Drinking water only without solid food is also considered fasting. This is necessary for advancement of spiritual knowledge. A foolish man wants to be a cheap yogi without observing the regulative principles. A man who has no control over the tongue at first can hardly become a yogi. Yogi and bhogi are two opposite terms. The bhogi or the merry man who eats and drinks cannot be a yogi. For a yogi, he is never allowed to eat and drink unrestrictedly. We may note with profit how Dhritarashtra began his yoga system by drinking water only and sitting calmly in a place with a spiritual atmosphere, deeply absorbed in the thoughts of the Lord Hari, the personality of Godhead. Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Tapan Prabhu, do you want to read? Hare Krishna. Akinchan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. One who has controlled the sitting postures, the yogic asanas, and the breathing processes can turn the senses towards the absolute personality of Godhead and thus become immune to the contaminations of the modes of material nature, namely mundane goodness, passion, and ignorance. Purport. The preliminary activities of the way of the yoga are asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dhyana, dharana, etc. Maharaj Dhritarashtra was to attain success in those preliminary actions because he was seated in a sanctified place and was concentrating upon one objective, namely the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari. Thus, all his senses were being engaged in the service of the Lord. This process directly helps the devotee to get freedom from the contaminations of three material modes of nature. Even the highest mode, the material modes of goodness, is also a cause of material bondage. And what to speak of other qualities, namely the passion and ignorance. Passion and ignorance increases the material propensities of hankering for the material enjoyment. and a strong sense of lust provokes the accumulation of wealth and power. One who has conquered these two mentalities and has raised himself to the platform of goodness, which is full of knowledge and morality, cannot also control the senses, namely the eyes, the tongue, the nose, the ear and the touch. But one who has surrendered himself unto the lotus feet of the Lord Hari, as above mentioned, can transcend all influences of the modes of material nature and be fixed in the service of the Lord. The Bhakti Yoga process therefore directly applies the senses to the loving service of the Lord. This prohibits the performer from engaging in material activities. This process of turning these senses from material attachments to the loving transcendental service of the Lord is called pratyahara, and the very process is called pranayama. Ultimately ending in samadhi or absorption, ill pleasing the Supreme Lord Hari by all means. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Raju Prabhuji.
Dhritarashtra will have to amalgamate his pure identity with intelligence and then merge into the Supreme Being, knowledge of his qualitative oneness as a living entity with the Supreme Brahman. Being free from the blacked sky, he will have to rise to the spiritual sky. Purport. The living being, by his desiring to lord it over the material world and declining to the cooperative with Supreme Lord, contacts the sum total of the material world, namely the Mahatattva, and from the Mahatattva is false identity with the material world, intelligence, mind, senses are developed. This covers his pure spiritual identity. By the yogic process, when his pure identity is realized in the self-realization, one has to revert to the original position by amalgamating the 5 gross elements and the subtle elements, mind, intelligence, into the Mahatattva again. Thus, getting freed from the clutches of Mahatattva, he has to merge in the existence of the super soul. In other words, he has to realize that qualitatively is non-different from spiritual super soul, and thus he transcends the material sky by his pure identical intelligence, and thus become engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. This is the highest professional development of spiritual identity, which was attained by Dhritarashtra by the grace of Vidura and the Lord. The Lord's mercy was bestowed upon him by his personal contact with Vidura, and when he was actually practicing instructions of Vidura, the Lord helped him to attain the highest perfectional stage. A pure devotee of the Lord does not live in any planet of the material sky, nor does he feel any contact with material elements. His so-called material body does not exist. Being surcharged with the spiritual current of the Lord's identical interest, and thus he is permanently freed from all contaminations of the sum total of the Mahatattva. He is always in the spiritual sky, which he attains by being transcendental to the sevenfold material covering by the effect of his devotion service. The conditioned souls are within the coverings, whereas the liberated soul is far beyond the cover. Hare Krishna.
Tapan Kumar Prabhu, are you available now?
I think he messaged Mataji.
Yeah. He said he'll write back. Okay, I'll read this. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sorry. He will have to suspend all the actions of the senses, even from the outside, and will have to be impervious to interactions of the senses, which are influenced by the modes of material nature. After renouncing all material duties, he must become immovably established beyond all sources of hindrances on the path. Purport. Dhritarashtra had attained by the yogic process the stage of negation of all sorts of material reaction, the effects of the material modes of nature, draw the victim to indefatigable desires of enjoying matter, but one can escape such false enjoyment by the yogic process. Every sense is always busy in searching for its food, and thus the conditioned soul is assaulted from all sides and has no chance to become steady in any pursuit. Maharaja Yudhishthira was advised by Narada not to disturb his uncle by attempting to bring him back home. He was now beyond the attraction of anything material. The material modes of nature, the gunas, have their different modes of activities, but above the material modes of nature is a spiritual mode which is absolute. Nirguna means without reaction. The spiritual mode and its effect are identical. Therefore, the spiritual quality is distinguished from its material counterpart by the word nirguna. After complete suspension of the material modes of nature, one is admitted to the spiritual sphere, and action dictated by the spiritual modes is called devotional service or bhakti. Bhakti is therefore nirguna, attained by direct contact with the absolute. Hare Krishna. Samyukta Mataji.
Yes, Mataji. Translation. O king, he will quit his body most probably on the 5th day from today, and his body will turn to ashes. Purport. Narada Muni's prophecy prohibited Yudhishthira Maharaja from going to the place where his uncle was staying, because even after quitting the body by his own mystic power, Dhritarashtra would not be in need of any funeral ceremony. Narada Muni indicated that his body by itself would burn to ashes. The perfection of the yoga system is attained by such mystic power. The yogi is able to quit his body by his own choice of time and can attain any planet he desires by turning the present body into ashes by self-made fire. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji. Sandhya Mataji, are you there?
Yes, Mataji. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. While outside observing her husband, who will burn in the fire of mystic power along with his thatched cottage, his chaste wife will enter the fire with rapt attention. Purport. Gandhari was an ideal chaste lady.
Chaste lady.
Chaste lady. Okay, Mataji. Gandhari was an ideal chaste lady, a life companion of her husband, and therefore, when she saw her husband burning in the fire of mystic yoga along with his cottage of leaves, she despaired. She left home after losing her 100 sons, and in the forest she saw that her most beloved husband was also burning. Now she actually felt alone, and therefore she entered the fire of her husband and followed her husband to death. This entering of a chaste lady into the fire of her dead husband is called the sati rite, and the action is considered to be most perfect for a woman. In a later age, the sati rite became an obnoxious criminal affair because the ceremony was forced upon even an unwilling woman. In this fallen age, it is not possible for any lady to follow the sati rite as chastely as it was done by Gandhari and others in past ages. A chaste wife like Gandhari would feel the separation of her husband to be more burning than actual fire. Such a lady can observe the sati rite voluntarily, and there is no criminal force by anyone. When the rite became a formality only and force was applied upon a lady to follow the principle, actually it became criminal, and therefore the ceremony was to be stopped by state law. This prophecy of Narada Muni to Maharaja Yudhishthira forbade him to go to his widowed aunt. Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Swapna Mataji, are you there?
Yes, Mataji, I'm here. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Vidura, being affected with delight and grief, will then leave that place of sacred pilgrimage. Purport. Vidura was astonished to see the marvelous departure of his brother Dhritarashtra as a liberated yogi, for in his past life he was much attached to materialism. Of course, It was only due to the Vidura that his brother attained the desirable goal of life. Vidura was therefore glad to learn about it, but he was sorry that he could not make his brother turn into a pure devotee. This was not done by Vidura because of Dhritarashtra's being inimical to the Pandavas, who were all devotees of the Lord. An offense at the feet of Vaishnava is more dangerous than an offense at the lotus feet of Lord. Vidura was certainly very liberal to bestow mercy upon his brother Dhritarashtra, whose past life was very materialistic. But ultimately, the result of such mercy certainly depended on the will of Supreme Lord in the present life. Therefore, Dhritarashtra attained liberation only, and after many such liberated states of life, one can attain to the stage of devotional service. Vidura was certainly very mortified by the death of his brother and sister-in-law, and the only remedy to mitigate such lamentation was to go out to pilgrimage. Thus, Maharaja Yudhishthira had no chance to call back Vidura for Vidura, his surviving uncle. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Lalit Mohan Prabhu?
Yes, Mataji. Mataji, before going to that, no, this is a last purport. Just after reading this, I wanted to share something regarding that shloka which was before this. Okay.
Sure, Prabhu.
Translation. Having spoken thus, the great sage Narada, along with his Veena, ascended into the outer space. Yudhishthira kept his instruction in his heart and so was able to get rid of all lamentations. Purport by his Divinity is from Prabhupada Ki Jai. Sri Naradaji is an eternal spaceman. Having been endowed with a spiritual body by the grace of the Lord, can travel spaces of both the material and spiritual worlds without restriction, and can any limited space within no time. We have already discussed his previous life as a son of the maid servant. Because of his association with the pure devotees, he was elevated to the position of eternal spaceman and thus had freedom of movement. One should therefore try to follow in the footsteps of Narada Muni and not make a futile effort to reach other planets by the mechanical means. Maharaj Yudhishthira was a pious king, and therefore he could see Narada Muni occasionally. Anyone who desires to see Narada Muni must be pious and follow the footsteps of Narada Muni. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the first canto, 13th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Dhritarashtra Quits Home. So just shloka before this, there was a translation. Mataji, text 59. Yes. So in text 59, what Prabhupada wanted to say in the purport. Could anyone understand? There are some, what to say, aerodynamic verses here, aerodynamic lines, which will go away, atop from our head. Dhritarashtra attained liberation only, and after many such liberated states of life, one can attain to the stage of devotional service. Do the devotees here understand what does this mean? What type of devotional liberation did Dhritarashtra achieve? Mataji, it is last but 3, line number last but 3. Dhritarashtra attained liberation only, and after many such liberated states of life, one can attain the stage of devotional service. So this is very, very important here. See, actually,
Brahman.
what Dhritarashtra has merged into the Brahman. He couldn't become a devotee. This we should be very clear of. Why? Because he has done Vaishnava Aparadha. With all your power, you can only become Sayujya Mukti. You cannot become like Sarupya, Salokya, Samipya, Sarshti. you can never attain those stages of liberation. You can only be in the Sayujya, means just merge into the existence of the Lord, existence of the Brahman, not Lord. Okay. So generally, whenever people ask, even after doing all these mischievous activities, he also attained liberation. Yes, he attained liberation, but what kind of liberation is it? It is Sayujya. And after that, he will again come back. And again, he will perform some devotional service in this material world. And then he will again go to the Samipya, Salokya, Sasti, Samipya. So, just getting liberation is not important. Devotional service is more important than attaining liberation. Because liberations can be of 5 types. But what kind of liberation are we, aspiring for? The devotees, they generally aspire to serve the Lord even after going to the spiritual world. That liberation is known as Samipya or Salokya or Sarshti. Understood, no?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yeah. So should we continue, Prabhuji?
Yes, Mataji.
Sapan Kumar Prabhuji, are you there now? It's not there. Okay. Akinchan Prabhu?
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. You can read until we have 60 verses. We can take 10 each and read. You can read 1 to 10.
Okay, Mataji. Yeah, chapter 13, Dhritarashtra quits home. Text 1. Sri Sutta Goswami said, while traveling on the pilgrimage, Vidura received knowledge of the destination of the self from the great sage Maitreya and then returned to Hastinapura. He became as well versed in subject as he desired. Text 2. After asking various questions and becoming established in the transcendental loving service of the Lord Krishna, Vidura retired from putting questions to Maitreya Muni. Text 3 to 4. When he saw Vidura return to the palace, all the inhabitants, Maharaja Yudhishthira, his younger brothers, Dhritarashtra, Satyaki, Sanjaya, Kripacharya, Kunti, Gandhari, Draupadi, Subhadra, Uttara, Kripi, many others, wives of the Kauravas and other ladies with children, all hurried to him in great delight. It is so appeared that they had regained their consciousness after the long period. With great delight, they all approached him as if the life had returned to their bodies. They exchanged obeisances and welcomed each other with embraces. Due to anxieties and long separation, they all carried out of affection. King Yudhishthira then arranged to offer sitting accommodation and a reception. After Vidura ate sumptuously and took sufficient rest, he was comfortably seated. The king began to speak to him, and all who were present there listened. Maharaja Yudhishthira said, my uncle, do you remember how you always protected us, along with our mother, from all sorts of calamities? You are partially like the wings of the birds, saved us from the poisoning and arson. While traveling on the surface of the earth, how did you maintain your livelihood? At which holy places and pilgrimage sites did you render services? My Lord, devotees like you, like your good self, are verily holy places personified. Because you carry the personality of God in your heart, you turn all places into place of pilgrimage. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Raju Prabhu, are you available to read?
Yes, Mother. Hare Krishna.
Please read 11 to 20.
Okay. Text 11. My uncle, you must have visited Dwaraka. In that holy places are our friends and well-wishers and the descendants of Yadu.
were always wrapped in the service of the Lord Sri Krishna. You might have seen them or heard about them, or are they all living happily in their abodes? Thus, being questioned by Maharaja Yudhishthira, Mahatma Vidura gradually described everything he had personally experienced except news of the annihilation of Yadu dynasty. Compensate Mahatma Vidura could not stand to see the Pandavas distressed at any time. Therefore, he did not disclose the unpalatable and unbearable incident because calamities come with their own accord. Thus, Mahatma Vidura, being treated just like a godly person by his kinsmen, remained there for a certain period just to rectify the mentality of his eldest brother and in his way bring happiness to all others. As long as Vidura played a part of a Sudra, being cursed by the Manduka Muni, Aryama officiated at the post of Yamaraja to punish those who have committed sinful acts. Having won his kingdom and observed the birth of the grandson competent to continue the noble tradition of his family, Maharaja Yudhishthira reigned peacefully and enjoyed the uncommon opulence in cooperation with his younger brothers, who are all expert administrators to the common people. Insurmountable, eternal time, imperceptibly overcomes those who are too much attached to family affairs and are always engrossed in their thought. Mahatma Vidura knew all this, and therefore he addressed Dhritarashtra, saying, "My dear king, please get out of here immediately. Do not delay. Just see how fear has overtaken you." Thus, frightful situation cannot be remedied by any person in this material world. My Lord, it is the Supreme Personality of Godhead as eternal time, Kala, that has approached us all. Whoever is under the influence of Supreme Kala, eternal time, must surrender to his most dear life. And what to speak of other things, such as wealth, honor, children, and land and home. Hare Krishna.
Text 21. Your father, brother, well-wishers, and sons are all dead and passed away. You yourself have expended the major portion of your life. Your body is now overtaken by invalidity, and you are living in the home of another. You have been blind from your very birth, and recently you have become hard of hearing. Your memory is shortened, and your intelligence is disturbed. Your teeth are loose, your liver is defective, and you are coughing up mucus. Alas, how powerful are the hopes of a living being to continue his life. Verily, you are living just like a household dog and are eating remnants of food given by Bhima. There is no need to live a degraded life and subsist on the charity of those whom you tried to kill by arson and poisoning. You also insulted their married wife and usurped their kingdom and wealth. Despite your unwillingness to die and your desire to live, even at the cost of honor and prestige, your miserly body will certainly dwindle and deteriorate like an old garment. He is called undisturbed who goes to an unknown remote place and freed from all obligations, quits his material body when it has become useless. He is certainly a first-class man who awakens and understands either by himself or from others the falsity and misery of this material world, and thus leaves home and depends fully on the personality of Godhead residing within his heart. Please therefore leave for the north immediately, without letting your relatives know, for soon that time will approach which will diminish the good qualities of men. Thus Maharaja Dhritarashtra, the scion of the family of Ajamira, firmly convinced by introspective knowledge, Pragya, broke at once the strong network of familial affection by his resolute determination. Thus he immediately left home to set out on the path of liberation as directed by his younger brother Vidura. The gentle and chaste Gandhari, who was the daughter of King Subala of Kandahar or Gandhara, followed her husband, seeing that he was going to the Himalaya mountains, which are the delight of those who have accepted the staff of the renounced order, like fighters who have accepted a good lashing from the enemy. Samyukta Mataji?
Yes, Mataji.
31 to 40.
Yes, Mataji. Text 31. Maharaja Yudhishthira, whose enemy was never born, performed his daily morning duties by praying, offering fire sacrifice to the sun god, and offering obeisances, grains, cow, land, and gold to the Brahmanas. He then entered the palace to pay respects to the elderly. However, he could not find his uncle Saran, the daughter of King Subala. Maharaj Yudhishthira, full of anxiety, turned to Sanjaya, who was sitting there, and said, "O Sanjaya, where is our uncle, who is old and blind? Where is my well-wisher uncle Vidura and mother Gandhari, who is very afflicted due to all her sons' demise? My uncle Dhritarashtra was also very mortified due to the death of all his sons and grandsons. Undoubtedly, I am very ungrateful. Did he, therefore, take my offenses very seriously and along with his wife drown himself in the Ganges? When my father, Pandu, fell down and we were all small children, these two uncles gave us protection from all kinds of calamities. They were always our good well-wishers. Alas, where have they gone from here?" Sutta Goswami said, because of compassion and mental agitation, Sanjaya, not having seen his own master, Dhritarashtra, was aggrieved and could not properly reply to Maharaj Yudhishthira. First, he slowly pacified his mind by intelligence and wiping away his tears and thinking of the feet of his master, Dhritarashtra, he began to reply to Maharaja Yudhishthira. Sanjaya said, "My dear descendant of the Kuru dynasty, I have no information of the determination of your two uncles and Gandhari. O king, I have been cheated by those great souls." While Sanjaya was thus speaking, Sri Narada, the powerful devotee of the Lord, appeared on the scene carrying his tumburu. Maharaj Yudhishthira and his brothers received him properly by getting up from their seats and offering obeisances. Maharaj Yudhishthira said, "O godly personality, I do not know where my two uncles have gone, nor can I find my ascetic aunt who is grief-stricken by the loss of all her sons. You are like a captain of a ship in a great ocean, and you can direct us to our destination." Thus addressed the godly personality, Devarshi Narada, greatest of the philosopher devotees, began to speak. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Sandhya Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Text 41. Sri Narada said, "O pious king, do not lament for anyone, for everyone is under the control of Supreme Lord. Therefore, all living beings and their leaders carry on worship to be well protected. It is He only who brings them together and disperses them. As a cow bound through the nose by a long rope is conditioned, so also human beings are bound by different Vedic injunctions and are conditioned to obey the orders of the Supreme." Sorry, Mataji. As a player sets up and disperses his playthings according to his own sweet will, so the supreme will of the Lord brings men together and separates them. O king, in all circumstances, whether you consider the soul to be an eternal principle or the material body to be perishable, or everything to exist in the impersonal absolute truth, or everything to be in inexplicable combination of matter and spirit, feelings of separation are due only to illusory affection and nothing more. Therefore, give up your anxiety due to ignorance of the self. You are now thinking of how they who are helpless, poor creatures will exist without you. This gross material body made of 5 elements is already under the control of eternal time, kala, action, karma, and the modes of material nature, guna. How they can it, being already in the jaws of the serpent, protect others? Those who are devoid of hands are prey for those who have hands. Those devoid of legs are prey for the four-legged. The weak are subsistence of the strong, and the general rule holds that one living being is food for another. Therefore, O king, you should look to the Supreme Lord only, who is one without a second and who manifests himself by different energies and is both within and without. That Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, in the guise of all devouring time, Kala Rupa, has now descended to the earth to eliminate the envious from the world. The Lord has already performed his duties to help the demigods, and he is awaiting the rest. You Pandavas may wait as long as the Lord is here on earth. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji. Lalit Mohan Prabhu, can you finish the last 10?
Yes, Maharaj. Text 50. The Lord has already performed his duties to help the demigods, and he is.
Sorry.
Oh, it's from 51. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Text 51. O King, your uncle Dhritarashtra, his brother Vidura, and his wife Gandhari have gone to the southern side of the Himalayan mountains, where there are shelters of the great sages. The place is Saptashrota, divided by 7, because there are waters of the sacred Ganges. There the waters of sacred Ganges were divided into 7 branches. This was done for the satisfaction of the 7 great rishis. Text 53. On the banks of the Saptashrota, Dhritarashtra is now engaged in beginning Ashtanga Yoga by bathing 3 times daily in the morning, noon, and evening, by performing the Agnihotra sacrifice with fire, and by drinking only water. This helps one control the mind and the senses and frees one completely from the thoughts of familial affection. Text 54. One who has controlled the sitting postures, the yogic asanas, and the breathing process can turn the senses toward the absolute personality of Godhead and thus become immune to the contaminations of the modes of material nature, namely mundane goodness, passion, and ignorance. Text 55. Dhritarashtra will have to amalgamate his pure identity with intelligence and then merge into the Supreme Being with knowledge of his qualitative oneness. As a living entity, with the Supreme Brahman being freed from the blocked sky, he will have to rise to the spiritual sky. Text 56. He will have to suspend all the actions of the senses, even from the outside, and will have to be impervious to the interactions of the senses, which are influenced by the modes of material nature, after renouncing all the material duties. Mataji, can you please scroll up? Yeah. He must become immovably established beyond all sources of hindrances on the path. Text 57. O King, he will quit his body, most probably on the 5th day from today, and his body will turn to ashes. While outside observing her husband, who will burn in the fire of mystic power along with his thatched cottage, his chaste wife will enter the fire with rapt attention. Text 59. Vidura, being affected with delight and grief, will then leave that place of sacred pilgrimage. Text 60. Having spoken thus, the great sage Narada, along with his Veena, ascended into outer space. Yudhishthira kept his instruction in his heart and so was able to get rid of all lamentations. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Should we do the this one, Prabhuji?
Yes, Mataji. Actually, I could read one message that Sapna Mataji, she wants to read. I'm sorry, I didn't see her message.
Oh, even I didn't see, Prabhuji. That's okay, no problem.
Okay, it's okay, Prabhu.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And
Mataji, this is not in the tanker shlokas actually. Yesterday, that should be added over here. It will be done by Giriraj Prabhu. I'll just text him about the same. So go to that, what is a Vedabase Mataji.
What are we doing today?
Yesterday, we will continue from yesterday, what we have done yesterday, 10:44:8, I guess. 10:44:16. 10:44:15, I guess, Mataji.
Yesterday did acha. Yesterday
Yeah.
day 16 cheyala ippudu.
No, 15.
15. Ida.
Yadohane vahanane. Yes, Mataji.
Okay.
So we will go with synonyms first. 3 times. We will read 3 times synonyms. Please repeat after me. Yah.
Yeah.
Please everyone repeat. Yah.
Yeah.
Yaha.
Yah.
Yeah.
Yaha.
Dohane.
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 Dohane. Vahanane.
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 Please repeat this again. Vahanane.
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 Mathana.
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 Upalepa.
Lepa.
Upalepa. Upalepa. Now please merge these 2 words of mathanopalepa.
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 Okay. Prenka.
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 Inkhana.
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 Arbharudita.
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 Now what we do is we read 3 words together like Prenka, Inka and Arbha. Inkhana and Arbha. Okay. Prenka, Inka, Inkhana and Arbha. We read all these 3 together 3 times. Okay. Prenke, Inkana, Arbha.
Prenkenkanarbha.
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 Okay. So prenka means on the swings, inkhana means swinging on the swings. Prenkenka means narbha means taking crying babies, taking care of the crying babies. Okay. Ukshana.
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 Now what we do merge these 2 words, Rudita and Ukshana. Ruditokshana.
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 Marjana.
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 Adau.
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 Gayanti.
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 Enam.
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 Anurakta.
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 Dhiyah.
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 Ashru.
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 Ashru. Kantyah.
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 Kantyah. Now what we do is we merged all these three words. Dhiyoshru Kantyah.
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 Dhanya.
Dhanya.
Sorry, it is Dhanya here. It is Dhanya. Dhanya.
Dhanya.
Dhanya.
Dhanya.
Brajastriyah.
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 Urukrama.
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 So what we do is, Dhanya, Vrajastriya, and Uru. We should, divide these three. We should read these three together. Dhanya, Vrajastriya, Uru. It will come like this. Okay. I will make you practice it later. But remember, Urukrama, we will, split it. Only then that, the meter can be set into it. Chitta.
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 Yana.
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 Okay. Now I will read line by line 3 times. You all will repeat after me. Okay. Like our regular this thing. Yado hane vahanane matano palepa.
Yado hane vahanane mathano 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 palepa.
Prenkhenkanar bharudito kshanamajanado.
Prenkhenkhanar bharudito kshanamajanado.
Prenkhenkanar bharudito kshanamajanado.
Prenkhenkhanar bharudito kshanamajanado.
Prenkhenkanar bharudito kshanamajanado.
Prenkhenkhanar bharudito kshanamajanado.
Gayanti chainamanuratta dhiyo shrukantyo.
Gayanti chainamanuratta dhiyo shrukantyo.
Gayanti chainamanuratta dhiyo shrukantyo.
Gayanti chainamanuratta dhiyo shrukantyo.
गायन्ति चैनमनुरक्तधियो श्रुकण्ठ्यो
गायन्ति चैनमनुरक्तधियो श्रुकण्ठ्यो
धन्या व्रजस्त्रिय उरु क्रमचित्तयाना
धन्या व्रजस्त्रिय उरु क्रमचित्तयाना
धन्या व्रजस्त्रिय उरु क्रमचित्तयाना
धन्या व्रजस्त्रिय उरु क्रमचित्तयाना
धन्या व्रजस्त्रिय उरु क्रमचित्तयाना Now 2 lines together. Okay. यादोहने वहनने मथनोपलेपा प्रेङ्केङ्कनार्भरुदितो क्षणमार्जनादौ
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 गायन्ति चैनमनुरक्तधियो श्रुकण्ठ्यो धन्या व्रजस्त्रिय उरु क्रमचित्तयाना
गायन्ति नमनुरक्तधियो श्रुकण्ठ्यो धन्या व्रजस्त्रिय उरु क्रमचित्तयाना
गायन्ति चैनमनुरक्तधियो श्रुकण्ठ्यो धन्या व्रजस्त्रिय उरु क्रमचित्तयाना
गायन्ति चैनमनुरक्तधियो श्रुकण्ठ्यो धन्या व्रजस्त्रिय क्रमचित्तयाना
गायन्ति चैनमनुरक्तधियो श्रुकण्ठ्यो धन्या व्रजस्त्रिय उरु क्रमचित्तयाना
गायन्ति चैनमनुरक्तधियो श्रुकण्ठ्यो धन्या व्रजस्त्रिय उरु क्रमचित्तयाना
You know, it's already 9:10, 9:15 near around. We will practice it tomorrow. We'll continue from tomorrow. But I just want you people to read once the translation, any one of you, please, and listen with rapt.
Shall I read, Prabhuji?
Swapna Mataji kiddam Mataji.
Go ahead, Mataji.
Okay, Mataji. Yeah.
Swapna Mataji, are you there?
Yes, Mataji.
Please read.
Yes. Translation. The ladies of Raja are the most fortunate of women because with their minds fully attached to Krishna and their throats always choked up with tears, they constantly sing about him while milking the cows, winnowing grain, churning butter, gathering cow dung for fuel, riding on swings, taking care of their crying babies, sprinkling the ground with water, cleaning their houses, and so on. By their exalted Krishna consciousness, by automatically acquire all desirable things. Hare Krishna.
Deepa Mataji, now we can close, Mataji.
Okay.
You can go ahead.
Thank you everybody for joining and reading. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrind ki jai. Srila Prabhupada book reading ki jai. श्रीमद् भगवत गीता की जय, श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। हरे कृष्ण।
जय